ready?
Yeah. Dantalian, right?
Dantalian.
Tal.
One more swig of water for the road.
You want a lozenge while you can?
Yeah, no.
All right.
We'll soldier through. So.
Fair enough.
How? Ooh, okay.
Hello.
Yay.
The things are
Cooking with gas
working.
here. Yes.
That's terrifying.
Yeah. All right. Well, I guess I'll start with the introduction in here. So, pardon my voice. All right. The tangents this week continue all the way to Pop Con in Indianapolis 2017. We are live on the podcast stage. It is Sunday morning, and my throat hurts. Thank goodness I do not have to do all the talking because I have these two wonderful gentlemen with me. Why don't you go ahead and introduce yourselves?
Hello, I'm Russell McGee. I am a sound designer and writer that works with Big Finish Productions.
And my name is Nicholas Krohn. I'm an author. I've written a novella that's going to be published soon, and I also help Russell McGee crushing strange things to make monster sounds.
And making warbly sounds as an actor for me behind the scenes.
And I'm several alien screams as well.
Alrighty then. As long as you don't ask me to do any alien screams, I don't think I could give you anything right now.
Yeah, we don't want to tear up your throat there, Rachel.
No, thank you.
You've done enough.
Yeah, thank you. All right, so I guess we'll start with you, Russell.
Okay.
I guess for the people here looking at us, not looking at us, and the people that will be listening to this later. This is the disembodied voice of Carl.
Carl,
Right
the
above
man.
us. Hi, Carl. Carl was my first victim when the podcast stage started 3 years ago.
You can't see him, but he's defying death.
Yeah, leaning over the balcony above us.
One of the main coordinators here at Pop Con.
Yes. So as we were saying, Russell,
Yes.
why don't you tell the people who don't know, because they've apparently been living under a rock, what Big Finish is?
What is Big Finish? Well, they are a audio production company that actually creates audio plays that are 2 and sometimes 1 hour in length that cover ranges like Doctor Who, Torchwood, Dark Shadows. They've done Stargate, Highlander, just to name a few. So they have quite a few licenses that they work with, and they also then bring in the original cast members to come back and reprise their roles and then create these new stories with classic doctors and the other ranges as I was talking about. And now, in 2014, I actually met up with Jason Hierle in Chicago TARDIS and had expressed an interest in actually becoming involved with them. And fortunately, Nick and I had just created a web series that was picked up and selected at the Irvine Film Festival, and Jason was okay with that. So he was like, okay, why don't you go ahead and contact us through the website and we'll have you audition, because we're always looking for sound designers, and we'll see what you got. And then after a 6-month audition process.
Wow.
Yes. 3 months just writing back and forth with the wonderful Ian Atkins. Yes, I'm giving you a shout out, Ian, because he's
Name drop away, please.
Ian's great. Ian produces the Companion Chronicles and Django and Lightfoot, and just all-around great guy. And he's been my main go-to talking to Big Finish in the UK. He also is the reason why, and I'll talk about this later, I was able to actually write a subscriber short trip, which was released last month.
Yay!
So, got to write my first Doctor Who story. Yay!
Yay!
But I met Jason and auditioned for Big Finish, and Ian set me up as far as with audition material. They I hope they don't mind me saying this, had me use some of the Dialectic Empire old files that they had already produced, and then I had to create my own sound effects and ambience and create a whole new version for them to see what exactly this crazy guy could do. And fortunately, they were happy, and then I was introduced to Nick Briggs, and he kind of then put me through my paces because threw me into the deep end with the Third Doctor box set, Volume 1, and I worked on Prisoners of the Lake, and that was something where the big thing with that one, if you've not listened to it, it's about a spaceship, spoiler, that crashes into a lake.
Ooh, a Doctor Who story involving a spaceship?
and a lake.
What a novel concept.
And so there's a spaceship at the bottom of a lake that's been there for many, many moons. And so the Doctor goes to investigate, and obviously there are many pitfalls along the way.
Of course.
But the big thing there was like, okay, here I was fresh on the spot, and I have to deal with all these water sound effects.
Oh, yeah.
And, diving bell, actually divers.
Yes.
The underwater spaceship, and later when it actually starts falling apart and you have the water rushing in all around you. Yeah, I had to figure out ways to create all of that. No pressure. Thank you, Nick. No, it was great fun. It was a solid story to start out on, and I also had a blast because my favorite Doctor is the Third Doctor, so I was very fortunate. And then from there, I've just kept working with Big Finish. As Nick had already said earlier, the next story, which was one of the novel adaptations, he and I worked on that. I brought him and my wife and a few other people in because they're all actors, and then I had them do all these crazy voices because Original Sin is quite an expansive universe in and of itself, in that there are multiple planets that are described within the book. So I had to have all these different types of aliens that also had never been created before for Big Finish or otherwise. So one of them was Dantalion, who's a Beeristrop, as I say that. And the thing that was fun about Dantalion is that he is this insectoid. So I got some like grasshoppers and some crickets and stuff, and I added in these little sounds in between as he's talking to make it sound that insectoid sound. Another one that was fun was the Ulians, because they were a race of birds, and so I had like geese sounds and things like that I, again, cut in between the actual dialogue that the actors were saying to try and bring these characters to life and make it believable. That's a huge thing for myself, is I always try to add in little touches like that just so it is something that's more believable and something that you as an audience can connect with. And so, Nick, describe what it was like having to do a bunch of those crazy alien voices.
We've known each other for 19 years now, and I've kind of gotten used to every now and then I'll get a phone call, and he won't always tell me what's going on. He'll say, "Hey, I need you to come over this week."
It's always fun.
It's like, "I need you to come over." He's like, "Why?" I'm like, "I need you to get on the bottom of my shower with some of my wife's shoes and tap dance with it."
Okay.
And I'm like, "Why?" And I don't know, was that for the...
Yes, that
for
was...
the Ulians, did that end up being, well, Emily's shoes or your garden implements? Because I think we tried both.
it was the shoes that ended up working the
Yeah,
best.
so,
and the
it's
reason why Nick was tap dancing with my wife's shoes.
I love the visual I
Well,
have
and,
in my
and
head.
I've never read the novel. I know nothing, and he's not allowed to tell me almost anything. And I'm like,
Right.
why do I have to go into the shower? He's like, well, the planet's made of metal. Sure, yeah, okay.
Actually, it was plastic.
It's a plastic world.
Yes, and that's why we were doing the shower, because we could get a plastic-like sound
like-
for,
The things you do for Foley, I went, both my undergrad and master's degree are in media arts with a specialization in audio and video, and I took several audio classes, and we did Foley as part of it, and just the things you have to do to get sounds that, if people knew what the origins were of things that they think, slamming a door isn't always slamming an actual door.
No.
And it's always funny for me because I'm never allowed to read the script. I can't hear any of the dialogue usually. I'm just relying on what Russell can tell me,
Right.
which is very much in the dark.
Yeah. So you have no context whatsoever.
Usually not.
Yeah.
And then when you do get context, it's not very helpful because then it's just stressful. Because when he did Empire of the Rachnos, he called me and said, I need you to come over. We need to go to a sound booth and break some crab legs. I'm like, why? He's like, well, we have to create the sounds of the Rachnos moving and stepping in things, and one of them gets hurt. And I'm like, they didn't do that on the show, and apparently not. There was very little Foley associated with the Rachnos body.
No,
So-
if you think of the Empress, they actually didn't have much sound effects around her movement, because she, as a creature in film, was very stationary in what we saw on screen.
Yeah, in her lair,
So-
she just
Yeah.
hanging out.
From my point of view, my friend called me and said, how would you like to create the soundscape for a Doctor Who monster that everyone knows but no one has heard before it? Sure, let's do that.
Yeah, and likewise, actually, even before contacting Nick, when David Richardson asked me to do this, I was like, 8-foot spiders? Yeah, that would be awesome. So we got to do this, and, Nick touched on it a little bit in that we spent 6 hours in the recording studio with king crab legs, a cat litter box, a paver, and a baking tin to try and create all the different surfaces and the sounds of the Rachnos moving about. And obviously, as we're doing it, it's just one or two layers of the sound as far as the footsteps, and then in post I had to layer that 5 times to make it sound like they had 8 legs.
Yeah.
And then imagine that you have this squishy, gooey crab leg, and we have many crab legs that we're dealing with like this.
Rapidly
I bet that
aging
smelled
crab
wonderful
legs.
by the time you were done.
Yeah,
It didn't smell good at the beginning.
No.
I have virtually no sense of smell. I
Yeah.
can't smell anything that's less than an inch from my face. I was dying.
Really?
It was so bad.
Yeah, and to help you visualize this, we're maybe in a 4x6 little sound recording booth. And so, yes, by the end of 6 hours, those crab legs were smelling very rough.
This platform is roughly the size of four card tables. We had about half that space, and we were completely enclosed and soundproofed, and there was no ventilation.
Yep.
Yeah.
So
Nick's actually helped me out a couple different times with stuff like that, not just with Foley. He also was able to, in another story, The Silent Scream, do some voices of actors and stagehands, because the opening sequence called for a 1930s Hollywood studio set where they were filming the next big picture, and so I needed a bunch of actors even beyond what they had provided me with, because there just wasn't enough voices to layer it to make it sound like a busy studio.
Right.
So, and on that occasion, I actually brought in 4 different actors in addition to what I already had with the Walla from Nick Briggs, which, for those at home that don't know what Walla is the technical term for actually just background actors that are acting in a scene to make it sound like it's a filled room.
actually, if you want to know what it sounds like, if we all just stop talking for 3 seconds, what you just heard was Walla. It's all those crowd noises
Yeah.
that don't make any sense.
Yeah.
And in Original Sin, one of them the things that get thrown at me are terrible. Like, I need you to talk like you're a tape run backwards.
Yep.
I said, what? Like, can't you just run it backwards? He's like, no, but do it anyway.
And what else did I have you do? I'm trying to think of the other alien voices we did with that, where not just backward, because I had you do one that was like parcel tongue.
Yeah, and then there was one that was Jabba the Hutt from Brooklyn, angry.
Yeah.
No, that was really what I was told. Don't laugh, because
Hey,
I need you to talk like a can opener. Sure.
Oh, my. Oh.
And as Nick also said earlier, we've known each other going on 19 years, so we have some quirks and stuff that we know each other.
No, we have known each other 19 years. We're now going on 20.
Fair. But the other capacity that we know each other in is as writers, and we've actually worked with each other a lot longer in that capacity than just about anything else, because we met in 98, right?
It would have been 97. We didn't like each other until 1998.
No.
That's true.
It is true.
That's true.
Like, we actually hated each other. Like, there was one moment where we almost got into fisticuffs. It was that bad. And we were also roommates for the summer during that.
Yeah. And that was, like, he spent, I think, 12 years trying to get me into Doctor Who and failed miserably until the very end. Because at that time, this is how long we've known each other. And this is also how long Russell has liked Doctor Who. During that summer, we were like broke college students, and we were doing summer stock theater in Terre Haute, Indiana. And one morning I woke up, it wasn't really morning, it was more like afternoon, and I'm kind of wandering around because I'm not a morning person. And he says, "Can you give me a ride today?" I'm like, "Where are we going?" "I need to go to the mall. The new Doctor Who VHS tape has just been released."
Yes, it was VHS.
And
It
so
was that
we
long
went to
ago.
go get a VHS tape of Doctor Who. And I believe it was Inferno, because you tried to make me watch it. And I have to admit, this is a story about how I'm wrong. I hated it.
Inferno is by far like one of my favorite stories.
And he's like so sure that I'm going to love this. And I was not ready. And I was wrong, because I love Inferno now. I absolutely love it. But at the time, I was not ready.
It took me a little bit to get hooked on Doctor Who. I know some of these people that, they watched it and were hooked immediately, and it took a little bit for it to...
Well, I was really pretentious in my early 20s. And the next time that the time that it actually worked, I had, I'd gotten out of a relationship and I wasn't feeling too well, and I was just staying in Russell's apartment. And he has literally every Doctor Who DVD. And when you have no job and you're in a new town and you're just sad, you want to watch something that you don't have to stop watching.
Yeah.
And so I started with Christopher Eccleston, and I think Matt Smith's first season was out on Blu-ray at the time. And I got through that, and it was over. And I'm like, I'm still sad. What am I going to do? And I went all the way back to the War Games and just completely watched everything again. In a month, I absorbed basically all of Doctor Who.
Wow.
And who's your favorite Doctor, Nick?
Now?
Yes.
Now it's Peter Capaldi. and the reason why is I have not had a Doctor until now, because of the way that I was exposed to the series, which is in a very small, that meme with David Tennant that says, you've just absorbed 9 years of TV in 2 days and no one's meant to do that. I did that with 50 years of television almost.
Oh, yeah.
And so they were all compressed, and I never identified with one or the other because I was exposed to them all so rapidly. But when it got to Peter Capaldi, who I love as an actor before the show, before he did Doctor Who, I already thought he was great. And he sort of assimilates all of the traits of all the doctors that I like and does them all at once. Yeah. So, your doctor is the one that when someone says Doctor Who, that's the face you see. Mm-hmm. And it's Peter Capaldi now. And I'm so sad he's going.
Oh, I am too.
I'm so sad he's going.
He's easily my favorite new era Doctor. Sixth Doctor is my overall favorite Doctor.
Me too.
So.
Me too. High five. No, for real. He's awesome.
I usually get strange looks from people. They're like, "Who's your favorite Doctor?" I'm like, "Sixth." They're like,
fantastic.
"Really?"
And also, he does a lot of good Big Finish
Oh
stories,
yeah,
too.
yeah.
That is
I know
true.
a lot of people that they didn't care for him on TV, but they listened to the Big Finish.
Well-
They're like, I have so much better appreciation for Colin Baker's doctor now.
And something I think I wish more people thought about was that he is the first doctor to ever take the role and want the role just because of what it was. Not as a career move, not as just a job. He said, I want to be the doctor. He's the first person that said that in the same way that David Tennant said it so many years later. And I think that makes him important. And I think he's amazing and fun, and I hope he keeps doing Big Finish until
he's a
no
great
longer with us.
ambassador for the brand too,
Absolutely.
as a whole.
Nobody loves it more. He's a lot like George Takei in that way.
Yeah.
That like he loves his franchise
Yes.
so much.
So Nick, tell us about your like short story book, something.
The Doctor Who project
what is it technically?
is it's fan fiction that is run by a group of people in Canada by this lovely guy named Bob Furnell. He is sort of the main guy, I think. At least he's the one that I end up talking to most of the time. And what they decided to do years ago was continue the show. So, like the one that's coming out this year will be season 41, and
Yeah,
they
this-
ignore all the.
This was back whenever we were going through those dark times, and there
Yeah.
was no.
Yeah,
Doctor Who on
I jumped
TV.
on the project's website,
Yeah.
and it was like it's almost like how Big Finish got started, where it was
Yeah.
during the wilderness years, and people
Yeah.
were just like, we need Doctor Who.
And
So
and they're up to their 10th Doctor now, and I had gotten an idea for a Doctor Who story that dealt with robots and civil rights, and I didn't know what to do, and the deadline was coming up, and I ended up writing a story called Moondust that is actually going to be, I'm pretty sure, their season finale when it comes out, which I'm kind of proud of. I'm really happy with the way the story turned out. It's a murder mystery that takes place on the moon involving robots, and the way that I came up with the idea in the end was I Googled what will kill you in space. And what I came up with was the surface of the moon is deadly. Even if it had an atmosphere, it would still be deadly. The surface of the moon is covered in about 6 inches of material from cometary impact, which basically means it's powdered glass.
Okay.
The entire surface of the moon is covered in powdered glass. And so when they went to the moon, it got into everything. Like they were getting black lung. They would have gotten black lung, the astronauts, when they came back from the moon. They was getting into everything. Their boots were made of like Kevlar, came from that. And they almost broke their air seals because the glass on the moon, it was so fine, but it was still ripping away at their boots. And so everything on the moon, when we build colonies there, will have to be absolutely sanitized for dust. And that's where the title comes from, is Moondust. And the Doctor and his companion Hannah show up on the moon. They get some gyros because for some reason, I don't know why, but they end up, there's a lot of eating in the story, which is weird because I don't like to write food, and they stumble upon the dead body of a robot covered in dust from the moon, which sets off an alarm, and of course they're stopped by the authorities and suspected, and
Right, yeah.
the story starts.
Okay.
But it's about robots and civil rights and how we treat people, whether or not they're human. And it also has a car crash in it, so that's fun too.
All right. Awesome.
And Bob asked us to actually do a little plug for them,
Which we are more than
because
happy to do.
They actually do take open submissions. They're always looking for new writers. So if anybody out there is interested, just look up the website www.thedoctorwhoproject, no spaces in between.com, and they're very, very nice people. They'll bend over backwards to help you out, and they're always, as I said, looking for new content. So they're willing to hear your pitch and see what you have to offer.
And they also do another series called Brief Encounters, which are short stories with the television doctors. So you can also, if you have a 7th Doctor story or something, there's a place for that too. You don't have to write necessarily for their new doctors. But I actually had a lot of fun doing this weird alternate universe Doctor and the companion. So,
That's the nice thing about Doctor Who is like you can write something and be like, oh, it's an alternate timeline because time travel's involved.
and the strength of it is its plasticity.
Yeah.
And that's one of the reasons why I like it so much is because, and again, in a single month, I saw that concept stretched and twisted and bent and tied into a knot and untied again several times. So that really appealed to me, and it's probably why I love it so much.
That is part of the brilliance of the way the series was developed in the first place. With regeneration, I mean, you're able to reinvent the character every single time you have a new actor. And so I don't know that the story will ever really cease, and it'll give more and more opportunities to tell different and exciting stories, whether it's in time or space.
Yeah, I mean, if it ever stops, it's definitely, our fault, not the fault of the concept itself, which is built to be eternal.
Yeah.
So I don't see any reason why it would ever stop, or should ever.
I don't want to think about it. It makes me want to cry.
No, I don't
Those
think.
would be
Just
sad.
having the year off last year is that was tough.
Well, I mean, I think now it's technically bigger than Star Trek, and Star Trek cannot be killed. Like,
No.
there's nothing you can do to Star Trek to stop it. And so I think Doctor Who is now easily in that class if it ever wasn't.
Well, at one point, Stargate actually, believe it or not, had produced more for a while, but then now we're back on top and have taken the reins again as the sci-fi series that has been on the air longer than any other. So that's cool.
Yeah. I'll take that.
Yeah.
And another plug for Big Finish, if you look at the number of hours of Doctor Who content that Big Finish has created versus 50 years of television, Big Finish has blown them out of the water in terms of running time. So you'll never run out.
We like to say anytime Big Finish makes an announcement for a new box set or something on the show, when we do our news segments, it's like, yay, Big Finish announced this, and it's like, yay, I'm excited, my wallet is crying.
Again, being so late to the party as I was, it's really daunting. The content isn't daunting. I've heard some people say that, well, I just don't know where to get in to this.
Right.
But I grew up on Marvel Comics in the 80s, and by the 80s, Iron Man went back to 1963, and so you just catch as catch can, and that's how I have always experienced media, without this sort of attachment to continuity that people seem to have now.
Yeah.
And I love continuity, but I do remember a time when I didn't need it.
Yeah. I mean, there is continuity within Big Finish, especially now that it's canon. Thank you, Paul McGann.
And Stephen Moffat.
Stephen Moffat.
Well,
but you really can kind of jump in almost anywhere and be fine. I mean, if you've got a particular doctor that you're a fan of, you could start with them. I mean, I started listening to Big Finish. I started with Colin Baker, and I started with the Marion Conspiracy, because I just thought,
Really?
Yeah, because I'd heard good things about, well, obviously Colin Baker's doctor, but then his companion. And I thought, that's probably a good place to start. And
well, you really can jump
Bob's
in
your uncle.
almost anywhere,
Yeah.
And I think Big Finish, one of the things they do really well is they sell themselves well. If you can get someone to listen to just one story, they will see what's going on.
Oh yeah.
The consistency of their quality is amazing. It's really interesting.
Yeah, I'm just sad that there's not enough hours in the day to just constantly listen to Big Finish. It's like,
Long car
the main
Well-
line just by itself is just humongous, and then they keep making announcements for these box sets. I mean, they just made the announcement about the war, the War Master with
Derek Jacobi.
Derek Jacobi,
So
and
Derek-
it's like, okay, yay, more Big Finish, but where am I going to find time to listen to all
Well,
this?
and that's the thing, is that once a week, Russell and I get together to write and exchange ideas and give each other notes on whatever we're doing. And the nice thing about 4 hours of driving is that I do have time for that.
Yeah.
And even then I feel like I'm crawling, but it's okay, because I know now that I'm pushing 40 so hard now that it's starting to push back. I know that I'm going to die with this big stack of books next to my bed that will never get read. And if there's a big stack of Big Finish stories there too, that's okay. At least I never ran out. You know?
That's true. You almost don't want to get to the end.
I don't. I never want to get to the end.
No, and
So anything else? I know when I talked to you yesterday, you're like, we've got stories.
we love stories.
You love stories.
So many
So
stories.
this is your chance to regale us with any fun tidbits or stories or plug anything? Or
Yeah.
we got time. We can hold off on the plugging.
Well, still bouncing off of Nick with actually the Doctor Who project. Another thing that they also work on is the Temporal Logbook. I don't know if anybody is familiar with that, but it's a anthology series that they have been doing as publication for charity. And they do that through Pencil Tip Publications, sorry.
We love you, Bob. We know what it's called.
But they also then are right now looking for a writer for a 4th Doctor serial and a 5th Doctor serial. So if you're interested in writing a short story for Bob,
I might know some people.
You might want to check out www.penciltippublishing.com. And also, I can provide Rachel with a link to the submission guidelines so that she can provide that to you listeners out there.
Sean, I'm talking to you. I know you're going to hear this later. We've got a brother podcast, which is how our podcast came from, was us all being Doctor Who fans and listening to the same podcast and finding each other via social media. But theirs is a Doctor Who specific podcast called Traveling the Vortex. There you go, guys. Nice plug right there. But they've actually developed a relationship with the folks over at Candy Jar Books that do the Lethbridge Stewarts.
Yeah.
And they've all gotten mentions as characters in some of the stories, but Sean specifically has written a short story for one of the anthology Lethbridge Stewart books that they've done recently. So I'm going to tell Sean that and be like, Sean, here you go. You want some more publishing credit? Here you go. So
yeah, I'm actually working on the 3rd Doctor story for them right now. Which is called The Spectre of Gelsendor, which Gelsendor, if anybody is familiar with that, is actually Chameleon, 5th Doctor Chameleon. And so that's where Chameleon came from. And so this character that I developed is actually a earlier version of what Chameleon becomes as an android.
Okay.
It's a invisibility suit that has an artificial intelligence. And I don't want to give too much away.
Well, of course. Spoilers, sweetie.
Yes. But it is a 3rd Doctor story, so again, old 3. And I have had a lot of fun with that. Nick's actually helped out quite a bit. And that's, as I said, we've been writing partners for quite some time. So we've worked together on many things. But I have that 3rd Doctor adventure coming out with the Temporal Logbook. And I helped Bob actually bring on Rob Nisbet, which, yes, I'm plugging you, Rob. But Rob has written several short stories for Big Finish and done the short trips. And anybody who's interested should check out the 2nd Doctor Volume 1, because he wrote a fantastic story in there. And then the other thing that just came out last month, and I think I might have mentioned this at the beginning, is I had my first short trip come out as a subscriber short, and it's called The Horror of High Bracel. And High Bracel is actually this phantom island that is from Celtic mythology, and the whole thing there is, it is known kind of like Brigadoon to appear and disappear and only show up one day every 7 years.
Okay.
So kind of the perfect setting for a Doctor Who story. And then it's classic 2nd Doctor, where you have this mad genius that's there in this base. Of course, it's a base story.
Of course.
And then I have Jamie and Zoe in there. So Jamie actually has a little bit more to do here because of it being set with the Celtic mythology and everything.
Kind of his thing, being a Scotsman.
Yeah. He actually knows a few things that Zoe and the Doctor don't know this time. Crazy. So I got to use that in a different way and give Jamie something else to do and play around with. So those are a few things that you can look forward to there. And if you are interested in checking out The Horror of High Bracel, you would have to be a subscriber to Big Finish. And
Right.
specifically, you would have to pick up Shadow Planet and World Apart, which is a 7th Doctor serial, or 2 stories. So that's how you would be able to actually hear that story.
That's one of the nice things about Big Finish, though, is if you decide to become a regular subscriber, I mean, you're getting what you're paying for the subscription. Can't speak, but they do throw in, like short stories and other things as bonuses for the loyal subscribers, which I think is really cool. So.
Well, and even with the online content and everything, the people that buy the downloads, they have cool things like they'll include PDFs of the scripts, and from time to time they'll do music suites from the story, and so you can get an entire musical score to your favorite Doctor Who story.
Nice.
Which I have used those as writing, like to listen to while I write, because I can't hear anything with lyrics. So it's like Brian Eno and scores of things.
So you asked about stories. Getting back to the Silent Scream, one thing that I can tell you with working with Nick is that he has a really good ear about detail. I mean, given that is what he does professionally.
Yes.
He was a stickler as far as what we needed to do with John Leeson's voice and making sure K9 sounded exactly right.
Right.
And one of the things there is that as sound designers, we have different platforms as far as editing programs that we're working with. I personally use Pro Tools, but there are a couple people that use Adobe Audition, Reaver, a few other different platforms. Within Big Finish, Logic is another big one that many of the sound designers use. But so the point in bringing that up is that there isn't like one way of having all the settings just right to get that canine voice so it sounds like the little tin dog that we all know and love.
Yeah.
So,
especially when you're trying to recreate digitally something that was made with analog equipment from the 70s.
Yes.
Right. So Nick and I actually went through 14 drafts. I do not joke about that. We went through 14 drafts of different versions of K9's voice until we settled on one that Nick was happy with.
Wow.
So.
And I have to say that, like, I heard little bits of that as it was coming along, and by the end of it, he was right. That 14th take actually was just a little more perfect than the other ones.
No, it
like
sounded spot on.
Yeah, his ear is not only very discerning, it is incredibly accurate. And I guess it should be him being him. But, but on the other hand, it was still astonishing. Like, just because you know that you're listening to a virtuoso musician doesn't mean you're not impressed.
Right. Yeah.
And the other thing that I should say there is I'm in no way complaining. I'm actually very grateful for the feedback and also appreciate the fact that Nick is that detailed about things. One other hang-up that we got into when we were working on the Silent Scream is it called for fog machine. Okay.
Oh, no, you're going to talk about
Yeah, I am going to talk about that fog machine. And so we're doing 1930s Hollywood again, so remember that. And then everybody thinks about a fog machine, they think about that hiss that comes out and everything with the
Something
modern
you'd
fog
hear
machine.
in like a haunted house or something.
Right,
Or,
right.
the thing that you bought at the party store when you were, a freshman in college
Yeah.
and you wanted to throw a really cool party.
Yeah.
But the problem with that is that's not actually what a fog machine was back in 1930. And the reality is, when I tried to research this and look up what a fog machine was and what the history was of a fog machine, even the internet did not have much on fog machines.
But the internet has everything.
I know.
But see, that's the question then. Was there a fog machine at all?
Oh, but
That
there
is a
were.
good question.
We did at least confirm that, and
we didn't. You did.
Fair. And it came down to also being a matter of them using dry ice and dropping that into water in a machine, and then a compressor would shoot it out.
Didn't it drop down from the ceiling? Didn't you tell me that?
What's that?
That they would actually have the fog machine above the sound stage?
No. It would be something that would be on the set off to the side.
Oh, okay.
But we're talking about something that was like 5 feet tall, guys. So this is a large piece of equipment. And the only even image that I found of this thing was something from a film in 1938. So I'm also like off by 8 years. So like it wasn't. So please don't hold me to this. But I
There's
did.
some Hollywood
Well,
historians
yeah.
that were shaking their fists going, that's
I did
not
what
right.
I could from what was available
Yeah.
there.
But on the other hand, the gate speed on the film projector as it's running was actually accurate because you have that projector.
Yeah, and yes, that's another little detail. I actually own 1920s hand crank film projector, so
Nobody knows why.
No, not lying. When my mom got that for me as a present, it actually had a still frame of Charlie Chaplin in it. Unfortunately, she pointed it out to the person who had that, and then they took that frame. But I still have.
Thanks, Mom.
No. I love that projector.
Yeah, well.
But so it is, as Nick said, very accurate in that we do have an actual hand crank projector sound effect that I was able to use. And also the film camera itself was based off of Bell & Howell. So that also had the hand crank, and I was able to use that. So we're talking about two different pieces there, but I had all of this film equipment because of what Nick and I shot as our web series, because it was a web series set in 1927 and revolved around a vaudevillian team trying to create their own first film. And so I had to have a lot of these old antique pieces of equipment for that.
A couple of them you already had. You did have a couple.
True. I do like film nostalgia, that's for sure. Which I think might be part of the reason that David gave me the story in the first place. I don't know.
Play your strengths.
Yeah, indeed. But the other fun thing about it is it's also a set at that time in Hollywood where the horror movies were starting to become king, like with Dracula and Frankenstein coming out. So the other thing that I tried to do to pay homage to those classics was there was a section of the script that called for music being played on the radio as the villain did his dastardly deed, which I'm not going to spoil, but I assure you he was being very dastardly. So
I'm twirling my mustache.
Yes, in true vaudevillian fashion. I wanted to highlight that and actually then pay homage, and what I did was those classics all used Swan Lake, or at least a section of it, to use as their theme music for the films. So I was able to track down a period score of that was recorded from 1930 that was in public domain. So I made sure that we had sync and broadcast rights to be able to use it, and then I also created a faux stereo mix of it so that when it's on the radio, it's in mono, and then as it transitions into the next scene, it goes into stereo, and then it also then mixes into these cars on the streets and everything driving by. So it was a nice little fun moment just to pay homage to the 1930s and Universal.
Very nice. So, well, we're getting close on our time here, so I guess we'll now get into letting you guys plug all your things. So plug away, pimp yourselves out.
Well,
not literally, but yeah.
No.
Where if you guys have websites or social media, all that fun stuff. If people want to find out more about your work and that sort of thing.
Krohn, do you?
Yeah, if you want to find me on social media, I'm on basically all of them, and it's very easy. Just look for my name, Nick Krohn, Krohn. No one else wants my name, so. I'm easy to find. The new season of the Doctor Who project, I think, is now coming out in the fall. I don't know exactly when that is, and I don't know exactly when my story drops, but I have talked to some of the other authors, and it sounds like it's all going to be really, really good and interesting. I feel very proud to be in good company.
Okay.
So you should go check them out.
And I am likewise on Facebook and Twitter. On Facebook, Russell McGee. I'm in Bloomington, Indiana. I know, hey, a American doing Big Finish. How'd that happen? So yeah, I'm based in Indiana, so if you want to find me, just give me a shout out and say hey. Also, if you want to see some of the other stuff that I've done, because